Alright, tonight I'm going to talk to you about Android and its rise in the smartphone market. Many of you might not notice, but Android was first pitched to Samsung. Well, that was a big mistake, as Android is now the most popular mobile operating system in the world. In the United States, 60% of mobile subscribers are using smartphones. 52% of them are actually using Android. So, with Android gaining its traction and rising to the top as fast as it did, I'm going to tell you a little bit about its history, and I'm also going to tell you about the insight of what it could do to the future of our generation, and our kids' generations. But before we begin, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm what they call a tech enthusiast. I love devices. I currently own the Nexus 7, the LG G2, the Galaxy S4, the Note 10.1, the iPad, the iPhone 5. I've worked for Apple. I've worked for Sprint. I currently work for Samsung. So I know my devices and I know my operating systems, and I love Android as much as I love the competitor's operating system, iOS or BlackBerry for that example. So let's dive into it. Why did Google purchase Android? Google back in 2003 secretly funded Android Incorporated, which was run by Andy Rubin. They thought that they were looking at this as an opportunity to put their search capabilities, their search engine that they had, onto a mobile device. Android saw this as an opportunity to revolutionize the mobile device, as did Apple with their iPhone. Well, since its first initial release, and let me tell you, when I first saw the first initial release, the G1 they called it, it was hideous. It was nothing like the competitor's iPhone. It didn't have class. It didn't have style. It, the name was perfect for it. Android. It was like a little robot-looking device. Well, since its initial release, they've put a little bit more color into it. They put a little bit more thought into the design. They hired the maker of the Sidekick, and he revolutionized Android. He created Honeycomb, which is the same style user interface that is used today in KitKat and 4.4. This user interface is so beautiful, so elegant, so minimalistic that Apple actually incorporated a lot of its features into their newest operating systems. This operating system that Apple had was not changed for about 6 years. So Android is creating ripples throughout the palm, every direction. Apple changed their operating system. The PC makers are also changing the way they design their operating system. Windows is changing it. The hardware is also changing, as now we have hybrid laptops that also double as a tablet. So with Android creating this big, huge rise in the competition, it has allowed the future to change and what our devices are going to look like. And with Android being free, it's allowing these manufacturers to actually think more on the hardware. What can we do? We now have pocket computers. We have very powerful little phones in our pocket, quad core processors, true HD 1080p screens in our pocket in 5-inch devices. That's amazing from where we came from, where the brick cell phone that we had back in the 80s. Well, with this being out there, with Android being free, these manufacturers are actually creating watches with Android on it, refrigerators with Android on it, even glasses are running Android. So our future is changing drastically. The use of smartphones are even changing. Smartphones now have their own accessory lineup, which are operating systems as on their own. This is going to change everything in our future, in my opinion. Developers out there now have the opportunity to develop anything for anything. They can just choose the operating system, Android for example, and place it on anything that they seem fit. They could create an operating system for the thermostat. Your whole house will be able to talk to you in the future with all these operating systems floating around and Android being free. So, with this, Android catching traction and manufacturers using it, it's creating more and more innovation. It's creating the competition to push itself to the next level. It's also allowing people to participate. The community is able to modify this as it's a free operating system and change it. Modifiers out there, it's like SonogenMod, became a company. They were the number one group of people out there to modify Android. They are now a full-fledged company that are teamed up with hardware manufacturers to go ahead and release smartphones. With this kind of teamwork and with the way that the smartphone has changed in the last decade, our future is in an imaginative state right now. So, what I want us to do right now is think about the movies that we had when we were childs. Star Trek, for example. The thought and the imagination that was put into that series, that show, is now being used today. We never thought we would be able to have video conferences on a mobile device that's not plugged into the wall, that was not 16 inches wide and weighed 2-3 pounds. Computers connect to the internet constantly. You don't have to dial a number no more. So with all these movies that we had back when we were childhood and the way we vision the future, everything but flying cars is coming true. And now we're at a point where our future is nothing less than our imagination. So I want everybody in the audience right now to go ahead and close your eyes. I want you to envision what you see the future to be in the next 20 years. 20 years from now, what do you see our future being? Do you see operating systems everywhere? Do you see it being like the movie Her, where we communicate to one operating system that's an artificially intelligent operating system that communicates back to us and becomes our personal assistant? Where do you see our future going? Where do you see our children's future going? This is the question that people are having now. And as a developer, the opportunity is endless. The potential is out there. Just gotta create it, think it, and apply it to an operating system. And you can get things to move. You can get objects to change. You can get your door locks to change nowadays. Just think of what the future is gonna hold for us and our children. And I'll leave you guys at that note.